Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, nearly 2 weeks ago on April 18th, we witnessed the United States once again using the law of the century to prevent Palestine from applying for membership in the United Nations. The remaining almost complete isolation of American colleagues has prompted the blocking of the relevant Algerian draft resolution. They do not want to create obstacles to the negotiation process, which will lead to the establishment of two countries on the basis of the existing international legal framework. In other words, according to their logic, the Palestinians have gained full statehood. Members of the World Organization will be an obstacle to negotiations with Israel. We strongly disagree with this logic. Satisfying the Palestinian application is nothing more than correcting the historical injustice of Palestine, which was supposed to become a state and be accepted by it as early as 1948. This is our common responsibility to the Palestinians. They are some kind of carrot that should encourage them to be more accommodating in negotiations with Israel. We deeply regret the actions of our American colleagues. They do not in any way reflect the principled position taken by the other members of the UN Security Council, who have effectively been held hostage by the United States in the Middle East for 6 months. In general, they are forced to say that no one expects anything new from every new meeting on the next U.S. veto on Palestine. Discussions at the General Assembly have become routine. At the beginning of the current escalation of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, we have heard many beautiful words from our American colleagues, the meaning of which is always that the United States is making active diplomatic efforts on the ground. In other words, Washington prefers multilateral approaches to unilateral approaches while asking others not to mess around. However, let us try to make an honest and objective assessment of the results of this one-sided approach. What has America achieved through quiet diplomacy? So far, 35,000 people have died in Gaza. Has the parties to the ceasefire been persuaded? The answer is obviously not successful. On the other side of Gaza, Israel has been carrying out bloody operations for nearly 7 months and has suspended them at will and tactically, ignoring the 3 resolutions adopted by the Security Council. There have been horrifying reports of mass graves being found in conclave recently. An independent international investigation is needed to bring the perpetrators to justice. Many cities in the sector were destroyed before a hospital and a school were built. The style of work has been wiped out and the road has been damaged. UNMAS estimates that it will take 14 years to clear Gaza of unexploded ordnance. There is no prospect of a sustainable cessation of hostilities agreement. It is worth noting that when the Security Council adopted Resolution 2728, it called for an immediate ceasefire during Ramadan. The United States was quick to declare that the resolution was not legally binding. That only added fuel to the fire. West Russell gave him the freedom to rock his hands not only in Vanclava, but also in the West Bank. Have our American colleagues succeeded in ending illegal settlement activity? We're obviously not Bree. On October 7th last year, he was killed by Israeli settlers at the connivance of the IDF. At least 18 Palestinians. During this period, 1,200 Palestinians were evicted from their land and their homes demolished. Against this backdrop, Israeli authorities issued a record number of illegal construction permits for 12,349 settlements in 2023. This is almost 3 times that of 2022. At the same time, we have not heard the words of judgment from the representative of the United States for a long time. Illegal expansion by the occupying power in the West Bank. Didn't we hear them today? The next question that naturally arises is whether the hostages were released, and the answer is no again. But this is not surprising because the continued operations in Gaza, which mostly target peaceful Palestinians, especially women and children, do not help to resolve this issue in indirect negotiations between Hamas and Israel. In view of the announced plans of West Jerusalem to attack Rafah, obviously they are only interested in Israel, in a military solution to the Palestinian issue, even at the cost of the lives of the remaining hostages. Unfortunately, our American colleagues are frankly cooperating with them in this regard. Part of the American-Israeli tandem plan is the American draft resolution that we and China jointly isolated in March, which actually agreed for future operations. In Gaza, have U.S. diplomats managed to help establish full humanitarian access to gas? Unfortunately, the answer to this question is no. The United Nations Secretariat has made it clear that such a task cannot be accomplished without the establishment of a cessation regime. Hostilities. A grim reminder. What? There was a tragic incident involving the workers, Wall Central Kitchen. An outstanding issue in the safe distribution of goods within the enclave. Unhindered access to Israeli permits for the delivery of humanitarian aid. The situation is significant in the alternative to air and water supply. It doesn't change. Even the bystander can easily see the irreplaceability of land transportation by looking at the horrific footage that has flown around the world, where unfortunate people die in extreme need from containers falling on their heads and drown trying to get bags out of the water. Dear colleagues, this is not a post-apocalyptic film. Unfortunately, the reality of gas life is real in 2024. Instead of convincing your ally to do everything possible to ensure full delivery, help on the ground. Washington is investing huge sums of money quickly to build temporary piers in Gaza, which makes no practical sense in peacetime. That would cover 4 parts of Bob Port's full-year humanitarian appeal. At the same time, the agency plays the role of the enclave's life support system. And Palestinians, the U.S. refugee has been blacklisted and its funds frozen because it has not been confirmed so far. Allegations. Israel's 19, his employees, involved in the attack Hamas to him in October. Sir, Chairman all, we understand that Palestine, like its Arabs, has a conflict with Israel, the Israeli conflict. Generally speaking, there is no and cannot be a military decisions. Violence breeds violence, and this vicious circle can only be broken if an unconditional ceasefire is achieved, and serious discussions are initiated on the possibilities of a just one, political settlement. To this end, of course, hostilities must cease and form certain conditions. We firmly believe that full Palestinian membership is one of them. This would equalize the starting negotiating positions of the parties, one of which immediately became a member, received in 1949. Accepting Palestine would be the first practical step towards the long-awaited statehood. Ratio. The vast majority is loud. They made it clear, including during today's meeting. I would like to believe that Washington will eventually decide not to oppose itself and unite with the international community. With them, efforts with his efforts. This is what we want, not just ordinary Americans. It is no coincidence that there are large-scale demonstrations among students angry at indulgence in the United States these days, his government's aggressive line of Israel, and supply him with weapons of which Palestinian women and children are being killed. It can, and it must end. Russia will continue to do everything necessary to stop the massacre in Gaza and to establish parameters for future coexistence. Israel and an independent Palestine, full status, member of the United Nations, and others, Arab neighbors decided, at the table. Negotiation. They're on the battlefield. Thank you.